Dickens set the tone for the way the city was written about for many decades. Novelists have relished writing about London. No other city, except perhaps Paris, has been not simply a setting, but a central character in so much fine literature. Many of Charles Dickens's successors wrote with a mission to illuminate the poor areas of London, which, one suggested, were no more known about or understood than the interior of darkest Africa. The historian Anna Davin says these writers achieved some success, but also created new stereotypes.
Some of the slum novelists had a reform agenda, one which in a way had already been set by Dickens, who is using fiction to expose all kinds of social problems. They certainly were presenting lives and surroundings that were unfamiliar to their readers. And then some people, in an almost prurient or tabloid, we would think, way now, exaggerated the worst things. And I think Arthur Morrison with Tales of Mean Streets, for instance, does that. And there's one of his stories which is called The Street, and it's so external and exterior, and it stresses how boring everything is and how without a spark of life.
Of this street there are about 150 yards, on the same pattern all. It's not pretty to look at. A dingy little brick house 20 feet high with 3 square holes to carry the windows and an oblong hole to carry the door. It's not a pleasing object. And each side of this street is formed by 2 or 3 score of such houses in a row, with one front wall in common, and the effect is as of stables.
Some novelists did get beyond the front door, did give a sense of the social dynamic. The most ambitious, most panoramic of London novelists were often outsiders. Dickens was 10 when he came to live in the capital. George Gissing was 20. And of today's novelists, the one with perhaps the sharpest sense of the city is a Welshman, Ian Sinclair.
I think outsiders see the privilege and the strangeness and the difference of London more clearly. I think particularly of someone like Joseph Conrad, who for years Polish seaman travelled the world and wrote that great opening to his book Heart of Darkness, where he describes being caught on the river, waiting for the tide, and seeing the Thames turn into the Congo. The Thames becomes an African river.
The sea reach of the Thames stretches before us like the beginning of an interminable waterway. In the offing, the sea and the sky are welded together without a joint. A haze rested on the low shores that ran out to sea in vanishing flatness. The air was dark above Gravesend, and further back still seemed condensed into a mournful gloom, brooding, motionless over the biggest, the greatest town on earth. Hunters for gold or pursuers of fame, they all had gone out on that stream, bearing the sword and often the torch, messengers of might within the land, bearers of a spark from the sacred fire. What greatness had not floated on the ebb of that river into the mystery of an unknown earth?
I think outsiders have an excitement about London. It's the mystery of it and the scale of it and the way that you can become anonymous and move through the city like a detective or a spy that is exciting to provincials like me.
Alongside this London observed style, many London writers have written about their own milieu, about people just like themselves. That's sometimes been derided as the Hampstead School, novels about middle-class angst, divorces and affairs. But new voices have provided new perspectives on communities which are otherwise hard for outsiders to penetrate. Here's Courtier Newland, a black novelist who writes about the grim estates of West London where he grew up, reading from his book Society Within.
Sitting in McDonald's at Shepherd's Bush Green, little Stacey felt intense pride when he saw Sissy coming strolling from the ladies in her out-of-school clothes. She was wearing a wood-brown skirt that outlined every womanly curve, sensible black shoes that gave her at least 2 inches, and a smart-looking blouse a shade darker than the skirt. With the addition of some makeup, a little blusher, eyeliner and lipstick, she looked 20 at a glance, 18 if you really studied hard. She sat down at the table in front of her big breakfast, then smiled at little Stacey when she saw him staring. "Do I look okay? You look dead." "Thank you. I like the brown lipstick." "Cheers. Just be careful not to get none on your teeth when you yam that food, you get me?" "Shut up, you." I'm writing from a black perspective in my books, because there hasn't been that much about, purely from a black perspective in London. But instead of me saying, okay, I want to write and make mainstream society aware of what's going on in here, I was more like, I want to write and make people who do come from this background aware of what's going on around them.
All the same, the effect is to provide a window on a world which might otherwise remain opaque. That's what the more adventurous London literature has been doing since Dickens and before. The broadest picture of London, past and present, is on the printed page.